Right, so Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, apparently, has been out showing some opposition, would you believe? I know, about time, some of you might say. We told you he'd turn socialist at some point and oppose the Tories. His supporters might sniffily muse, but it's not the Tories as opposing, you silly billies. It's the Green Party. Starmer's opposed to anything, it's to change. He's keeping child poverty, after all. He's keeping migrant prison barges. He's keeping gas and oil licences that the Tories are about to pass. And he's keeping pretty much everything he said he was going to bin when running to become leader. One of, if not the most dishonest, lying politicians we've seen in decades, as he is. He hates tree huggers. He's attacked his own London mayor over clean air, despite agreeing with it, until he needed someone to blame for losing the Uxbridge by-election. And anyone within Labour who has the slightest interest in properly addressing climate change, the biggest issue of our time, because more important than our world being on fire and climate disaster befalling us all is those poor gas and oil investors who are being left without certainty and possibly without a party to fund along with that. Bit of that. Be it the blue Tories of Rishi Sunak or the red ones of Keir Starmer, you'll be getting more of the same, more of what we're getting now, which is rubbish. And so we come to the natural conclusion that shutting down and opposing anyone discussing change, or the need for change, and therefore threatening the whims of the establishment who like things as they are, that Starmer is licking the boots off, becomes the priority. So as much as Labour very much is running scared of the Greens, one of Starmer's most high-profile hangers-on, of all places they could have chosen to stand and drawn attention to, as much as the fight against the Tories as people want to see Labour doing could be highlighted. Eddie Izzard, for it is she, actor and comedian and Starmer stan, has decided to try and be selected as a Labour parliamentary candidate once again in the one sole Green Party parliamentary stronghold in the county, in the constituency even, of Brighton Pavilion. Now, Izzard describes herself as gender fluid, is transgender, so quite why she thinks standing for Labour anywhere in the country of the turf war, T-E-R-F, within its ranks going unpunished, I can't possibly fathom. I really can't imagine Rosie Duffield sitting next to Izzard in Parliament all sweetness and light, can you? But more laughable is the gump Izzard has come out with in order to this time be selected. Izzard has said, I'm standing to be the next Labour MP for Brighton Pavilion, to support this brilliant city and its diverse and vibrant community. I'm just the latest in 200 years of Izzards in East Sussex. I grew up in this county and I'm proud of my roots. Whilst the Tories stoke fear and encouraged culture wars for 13 years, the Tories have tried to drag us down. And we've also seen what happened under the recent Green Council. House building stalled whilst rubbish piled up in the streets. Labour needs a candidate that can inspire many thousands to become our friends and allies in the fight for a fairer, greener, cleaner planet. Reaching out to people and lifting them up is at the heart of my politics, blah, blah, blah. She does go on a fair bit more, but you get the kind of gist that she's after. Mostly it attacked the Tories. Most of it is willful ignorance of Starmer's actions. But then Izzard was also happy to join in on the anti-Semitism attacks going on under Corbyn too, happy to pen a piece in The Guardian, which did more to attack Corbyn as a news outlet than any right-wing rag ever did, and push the scam day after day after day, for a scam is exactly what it is. Now, Izzard talks of her roots in the county. My wife, funnily enough, has Izzards in her ancestry. She's probably related to Eddie, therefore. But it doesn't mean she wants to stand in East Sussex, even if she were particularly politically minded. She's not. I do her head in on the quiet, and besides which, she's from Hertfordshire. But then, Izzard isn't quite being straight with us here either, despite these ancestral links that have been claimed. She went to school in East Sussex, but she was actually born in Yemen. She moved to Northern Ireland when she was a year old, to Wales when she was 5, and only cropped up in Eastbourne in East Sussex when sent to prep school there. Proper working-class roots are there, of course. So that 200 years of Izzards in East Sussex, well, it's just a tenuous attempt to prove a local link somehow, somewhere, and not just admit to being parachuted in, potentially. But the bigger question is, why stand against the Greens in Brighton and not the Tory in Eastbourne, then? Caroline Ansell is the incumbent Eastbourne Tory MP, has a majority of less than 5,000. So why take on the Greens instead? This seems an entirely winnable seat for Labour, surely. Well, I can't help be a bit of a cynic. Regular viewers know I'm a bit cynical about such things, and when you consider outgoing Green MP Caroline Lucas has a majority of just shy of 20,000, it's a bit of a bizarre choice, isn't it? I'm also reminded that it was only last year that Izzard attempted to be selected to stand in Sheffield, so what's the local connection up north then, Eddie? But of course, this all predates on the assumption that the Tories are who Starmer truly opposes, and when they're on the same page in so many aspects of policy right now, any opposition is largely academic. The Greens, though? Well, they gave Labour a hammering as well as the Tories during the local elections, didn't they? Which were nowhere near as good for Labour as they expected, nor have publicly admitted, as have said that it was. It really wasn't. And much of Starmer's losses, for he had some, due in no small part to voters and members deserting the party over blatant factional candidacy rigging. The Greens were also the only party to make gains in all three of the recent parliamentary by-elections, coming third in every single one of them, actually beating Labour down in Somerset, and they came fifth. Beating Labour might be a part of the issue, though, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Although I didn't go into all of Izzard's video diatribe there, where she attacked the Tories for the state of the country we're in, not going to argue with that point. Not that Labour are particularly proposing to be anything any different. It was notable, I felt, the brief attack on the Green Party to make mention of it, because with a straight face, Izzard said, Labour needs a candidate that can inspire many thousands to become our friends and allies in the fight for a fairer, greener, cleaner planet. Well, not if you want to be friends with Starmer, because he hates the tree huggers. Didn't you get that memo? Explain how that also works with oil and gas licences not being revoked. Starmer has apparently been coming under some pressure to U-turn on his position over investor certainty connected with the Tories' new licences, but as per usual, he listens to nobody except Blair and Mandelson, certainly not party members and officials. Who on earth do they think they are? How dare they? Insolence. As for making friends and allies, saying everything the Tories keep mouthing and driving away members and supporters is very friendly behaviour going on either. Having Starmer as a friend would not only be a soul-destroyingly depressing thought, but he'd be the sort of friend who'd take your last biscuit and blame it on your kids. All the integrity of a packet of busted biscuits, in actual fact, quite honestly. Of course, Izzard herself wasn't above a little bit of dishonesty either, in my opinion. That Green Party council line she came out with about not building houses and the bin strikes. Councils need money to build houses. The Tories deny it to them, as they've denied money to everything else. Houses don't get built without money being put into it. It's not like the Tories have been embarking on a big housing building programme themselves, is it? That would damage landlords who need security in their investments, after all. Bring down house prices, God forbid. But Brighton and Hove Council, the council in question, was not a Green council and never has been. Izzard alluded to the recent council, i.e. the one elected in 2019, before the recent elections there this year, where the Greens were not the biggest party. They were actually the third largest in 2019, behind both Labour and the Tories. Labour was the biggest party then. Labour formed the majority on that council at that point, just as it is now. They, however, couldn't organise a proverbial in a brewery there when they were elected in 2019, and their administration collapsed within a year, with a minority Green administration then forming to take over. Minority, as in having to rely on other parties to get things done. Two other larger parties than they were at that. Bizarrely, such was the situation. So when Izzard bemoans a lack of house building, and of course the rubbish building up when bin men went on strike there, sure, the Greens copped the blame for it. But their hands were also largely being tied by the alliances they were required to make to get anything passed and got through the council. It certainly also didn't help that one Tory councillor, notably, decided to echo the words of Maggie Thatcher in relation to that bin strike in negotiations with the GMB trade union, as they were, by saying, "We don't negotiate with terrorists." But sure, blame the Greens. If bin strikes are so close to Izzard's heart, incidentally, as well, supporting a guy like Starmer, who literally laughed over the fact Coventry bin workers went on strike, is something you'd think they'd be more outspoken about. Was it not you, Eddie, who went to Coventry in 2017 campaigning for a Corbyn-led Labour, it is true, at that time, so props to her for that, who gushed about the first comedy gig she'd done outside London being in Coventry, and that the place was special to you, Eddie? Yet now you want to be elected as a member of a party led by a guy who laughs at bin strikes and actually doesn't believe in attending picket lines. If Labour do end up selecting someone as high profile as Izzard in Brighton to stand against the Greens, though, it will show Labour is the complete opposite of what Izzard says it is. It is about shutting down actual opposition to the type of government and politics we have right now that won't change under a Starmer-led administration. But people are not being taken in by this. Polling right now gives the Green Party in Brighton Pavilion, with their new candidate, another former party leader, Sean Berry, a 39-point lead. Their lead actually having increased of late by nearly 6%. Yes, Labour have gained too. but only a measly 1%, so the gap is growing. It's not a seat Labour looks like winning, but in worse news for Labour, they look set to lose another seat to the Greens instead. Bristol has been a scene of increasing Green Party support over several years now, and now electoral calculus are predicting the Green Party current leader, Carla Denyer, will herself enter Parliament at the next election by taking Bristol Central from Labour and putting the god-awful Starmeroid thangam debbonaire out on her backside. Particularly embarrassing for Team Keith, given that she's one of his front benchers, the current shadow leader of the House of Commons, no less, and somebody who's also been cheerleading for the landlords. The Greens currently have a 7% lead over Labour there. People are sick of status quo politics. People can vote for change, and successfully so, as we are seeing, and the Green Party is the place to go for that now. That's where the momentum is. That's where the drive for change is appearing. All their policies are on their website too. You don't need to wait till the next election to find out what they stand for, because they stand by their principles, unlike others who put theirs up for sale each time an election comes around. Labour can put up who they like, from celebrities to unknowns. It doesn't matter. When they stand for nothing, what is the point in voting for them to get another useless empty suit out, only for the suit to be filled by somebody else not worth a damn thing either way? I hope Izzard, or whoever else might be selected to stand for Labour in Brighton Pavilion, loses, because there's nothing progressive in voting for them, and the same goes for any stormtrooper candidate anywhere in the country. Check out your local Green candidate instead. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation for you where Starmer's ineffectualness has led to even Jeremy Corbyn labelling him a coward now, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.